With Jeb Bush out of the presidential race, guess whose numbers went up? And why is John Kasich staying in the race even though he came in dead last in Nevada? He told us. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
1,237. That's the magic number. That's the number that Donald Trump or any other Republican candidate must have when he goes into the Republican convention to secure the nomination for president. We have discussed this at length and done a fairly in-depth instruction on how the conventions work. If you missed that episode, go to our website, and I think that you're going to be really happy with what you learn. All right, why is John Kasich, current governor of Ohio, staying in the race? Well, obviously he wants to be president. But how could he be president? Granted, he finished second in New Hampshire. He did horribly in Iowa. He did poorly in South Carolina. He came in dead last in Nevada. He's trailing in virtually every state. There is no state in the union where John Kasich is polling ahead of Donald Trump. And in most states, he's polling behind Ted Cruz and behind Marco Rubio, often coming in either second to last or dead last. How could he possibly be the president? He told us what's going on in his head. A brokered convention in the state of Ohio. The Republican convention is being held in Cleveland, Ohio. And a Quinnipiac poll came out a couple of days ago in which John Kasich beats Hillary, all right, in a Kasich presidential run against a Hillary presidential run. He beats her in Ohio by 17 points. For those of you who wonder why is that so critical, think John Kerry, 2004. Ohio was the swing state that determined the outcome of the election. Ohio could determine the next president of the United States. And so Kasich is saying, look, if you need to carry Ohio in the GOP, or rather in the general election in 2016, I'm your man. I'm a sitting governor in the state of Ohio. I'm a popular governor, and I can whip Hillary here in Ohio and therefore become president. The problem facing Governor Kasich is that most Republicans don't like him. I don't like him. I don't trust him. I think that he is a treacherous, duplicitous Catholic. I think that he's a socialist. I think that he grovels at the foot of the Supreme Court. I don't want him to be our president. But thankfully, most Americans agree with me. Here's the thing. He's staying in this race to be a spoiler. If enough people stay in the race and the delegates get divided up piecemeal, it is possible that that magic number, 1,237, will not be reached before Mr. Trump gets to the convention. And if that happens, I promise you this, the Republican machinery is even now planning, plotting how they could get an establishment man like John Kasich to be the nominee. And that is what Kasich is hoping for. And that is why he is staying in this race. He knows he cannot possibly win the primary. He's actually trailing Donald Trump in his own state. All right? So Trump is beating Rubio in Florida, for example, by about 15 points. He is 5 or 6 points behind Ted Cruz in Texas. It's the only state in which Trump is not leading in the polls, is Texas. And their favorite son, Ted Cruz, the senator, is ahead in that poll. Had the government, or had the governor of the state of Texas endorse him yesterday. So he's got the edge in Texas, which is expected. Rubio doesn't have it in Florida, and Kasich doesn't have it in Ohio. Think about that. A sitting governor in the state of Ohio is losing to Donald Trump. So, again, not to belabor the point, but so you get what is going on. The establishment wants people like Kasich and Rubio to stay in. They even want Carson to stay in, because a lot of Carson's votes, should he pull out, would go to Trump. Because Carson's is the anti-establishment vote, which is exactly what Trump's base is. And as funny as it is, when Jeb pulled out of the race, guess where some of his voters went? Donald Trump. When we come back, some not so funny humor from a New York Times journalist. We'll see how much trouble he gets in, and another little tidbit that you'll find funny regarding Donald Trump. Don't go away. Friend, we are in the middle of producing a 14-part epic television series called What Would Mohammed Do?, explaining Islam and ISIS to the West. I have a master's degree in international terrorism, and I have studied ancient Islamic texts for over a decade. And we are going to do a very paced and a very scholarly look at Muhammad's life and see the connection of his life to today's headlines. Well, we need your help on 3 levels. 1, we need help with some security measures. 2, we need help with some gear for the studio. And 3, we need help with some computers. I'm inviting you to go to the GoFundMe site that you see on the screen and watch the pilot for episode 1. You'll get a feel for what it's going to be, and I promise you, you're going to be excited. You'll be challenged, and you're going to want your friends to see it. And then after you've seen it, give what you can to help us with this project. Thank you. Helmut Norpoth. He is a political science professor at Stony Brook University. And he is in the news. He says that he has created, as a political science professor, he's created a scientific, I don't even know what you'd want to call it, a model by which he can predict who will be president. And he's been using it successfully, 96% successfully, since, well, he says since 1912. I don't know how he can retroactively go back that far, but he says he can. He has been using it since the early 60s, and with the exception of the race against Nixon and Kennedy in 1960, he's gotten every single race correct early on, predicting who is going to be the president. Well, this man has said, with his scientific model, there is a 97 to 99% surety that we are going to have Donald J. Trump as the next president of the United States. So he's got people flipping out. Oh my goodness. I predicted on this program probably 4 months ago that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee. I hold by that prediction unless something outrageous happens. He is going to bury most of his opposition on Super Tuesday. There's a man who is a New York Times reporter, Ross Douthat, or Douthat, I don't know how to pronounce his name, it looks French. And he also has made the press because he said that he, as a so-called conservative, says that he would rather have Hillary as president than Donald J. Trump. You know, somebody is full of it, and when they say they're a conservative and they would rather have Hillary. You know what? Let me tell you what he did, and then I'll explain to you why that is so preposterous and why there are some conservatives who would rather have that. Okay. Mr. Douthat, or however you pronounce his name, Ross, is in a heap of trouble because he tweeted out, "I know how the Trump campaign ends. I can see my way out of it, how to get rid of Trump." And he puts a clip in of a movie that starred Martin Sheen as a senatorial candidate who wanted to be president. And when there was a man who was going to try and assassinate him, who was actually shooting at him, Martin Sheen grabs a baby and holds the baby up. See, look at the picture. Holds the baby up to shield himself from the assassin. Now, as it turns out, the baby wasn't hurt. Martin Sheen wasn't hurt. The assassin was shot by a law enforcement officer, and the man lost, Martin Sheen's character lost his credibility, and therefore, because he would have used a baby to protect himself, and therefore he could not become president. So this New York Times reporter sends out this tweet with a clip of this, obviously inferring an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And his friends, his associates, came unhinged at him, saying, can you imagine if someone said this about Obama in 2008? Do you really think this is funny? Are you out of your mind? Dude, you need to take a break. You need some time off. It'll be interesting to see how the New York Times disciplines him, if they do. As of this recording, he has apologized and he's deleted his tweet, which is funny because, as you can see, look at the snapshot. Let's put it up. You can see that, well, there is the tweet that was deleted. Once these things are out there, they're out there, and they're out there for good. It's just not funny. It's just not funny. Having had presidents assassinated in this country, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny about Obama. It's not funny about any president. All right, let me explain to you why he would want Hillary instead of Trump if Mr. Ross Douthat is actually a conservative. You ready? Because he and his conservative buddies get to keep the machinery intact. In other words, they are still the opposition of Hillary. They stand the best chance of fundraising. Let me explain this to you. This is dark, but it's true. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'm going to take a break, and I will explain to you in the next segment why there are conservatives who would rather have Hillary as president than Donald Trump. And there's actually a few reasons that are deplorable, but there are reasons nonetheless. These are people who love power and love money. There's your clue. I'll be right back. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas referred to John Locke twice in his dissent in the Obergefell decision. John Locke is referred to as the philosopher of American liberty. He was a genius, and he not only believed in natural law, but he believed in revealed law, the Word of God, the law of God. And he is one of the two most influential philosophers on the founders of this republic. We are offering you this book, and I'm going to give you my book as well, The Sword. The Sword, the subtitle is The Blessing of Righteous Government and the Overthrow of Tyrants. It looks at what is the legitimate purpose of government and when is it our right to overthrow government like they did with the Declaration of Independence. We will send you these two books if you simply pay for the shipping and handling, $8, and then give whatever else you want. And by the way, the $8 doesn't cover our cost, but if that's all you can afford, we'll send them to you for the $8. God bless you. Who do you think would be a better president? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? That may be the question that we are facing in November of 2016. Who would make a better president? For those of you who are pro-life, who has said that he's pro-life? Donald Trump. Yes, he's a recent convert, but he promised he would sign any bill to defund Planned Parenthood, and he said he wants to put Supreme Court justices on like Scalia and Thomas, who clearly want to overturn Roe versus Wade. Marriage. He says that he believes marriage is between a man and a woman, and the Supreme Court decided Obergefell wrongly. Hillary, she wants dead babies without limit and wants marriage to be between anyone. Go down the list. Second Amendment. Those of you who really cherish your right to keep and bear arms. Who do you think would be a better president? Trump or Hillary? Now, let's just stop at those. Let's go one more. Let's talk about our relationship with Middle Eastern countries and oil, our dependency on oil. Who do you think is going to have a tougher stance against the encroachment of Islam and ISIS and the fact that we're funding terrorism? You think it's going to be Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? I think it's going to be Trump. All right, those are 4 issues. There's others. So if a person who is allegedly a conservative and holds to these opinions that I just delineated, if they say I'd rather have Hillary, who is against all these things, you have to step back and say, why? Why would you rather have Hillary? Because it's not about the good of the country. It's about the prestige, the power, the money of the so-called conservative leaders and the conservative groups. The prestige. If Hillary gets in office, in the media world, you have to have side A, Hillary's side, and side B. That would be the opposition. So if Hillary were elected, the thinkers and the prognosticators, the Charles Krauthamers, they get to be the opposition. They get to be the ones who are interviewed. They get prestige. They're the ones that the New York Times and the Washington Post reporters will call for a quote. Power. Well, they're the kingmakers. They're the ones behind the scenes, negotiating who's going to run in this race or that race. Who are we going to help win a seat? Whose parties do we get to go to? And then, of course, money. If Hillary is elected president, groups who are conservative will raise enormous sums of money. Did you understand that Barack Obama was a financial windfall for all of these issues that I mentioned? For marriage, for babies, for the Second Amendment, for Islam, anti-Islam. He was a windfall financially because people want to throw money at opposition. Right now, Donald Trump has basically ignored the conservative establishment, or even, yes, begun to relegate it to insignificance. So that means that their prestige and their power and their ability to raise money is going to be severely hampered and, in some cases, crippled. So they would rather have Hillary, not for the good of the country, not for the issues that they say that they believe in, but because they want for themselves to still have an elite status where they get to call the shots, they get to be the go-to people, they get to be the ones on TV, they get to be the kingmakers, they get to raise the money. It's the way it is. Now, many of them would never admit it, but the GOP establishment, you understand, if Trump becomes president, think about this with me. The Democratic Party and its leadership are clearly against most Christian-based principles, all right? The Republican establishment says that it's in favor of those Christian principles, but again and again caves in. They raise the white flag and give Obama what he wants. They behave like scared school children. And so the establishment, in some ways, has become an ally to the Democrats and an impediment to us getting the changes that we actually want. And so what Donald Trump is doing right now is he is undermining the GOP establishment and showing them to be what they are: treacherous, cowardly lions, ineffective, bumbling. I mean, look at the way he talks about them regarding the deals that they cut. In fact, the perfect insult, then I'm going to take a break, the perfect insult that he gave to the Republican leadership the other day was, he said, Obama doesn't know how to negotiate a deal. Every deal that Obama has negotiated has been horrible, and he always gets the worst of it, except when he's negotiating with the Republicans. Then he always wins. because they always surrender. There's your insult. That's why the GOP establishment hates Trump, because he's showing the American public what the GOP really is. And that's why a conservative like Ross Douthat, with his poor, pathetic joke, the man from the New York Times, says that he would rather have Hillary as president than Trump, even though he's a conservative, allegedly, because it's about him. It's not about the babies or marriage or the Second Amendment or the threat of Islam. It's about him and his buddies and their prestige. And that, my friends, is why at the end of the day, they are hirelings. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are Judases. And I could only hope that they are relegated to insignificance as quickly as possible. Friend, this TV show represents a mission. It's to be a voice of resistance to the evil in the land, but also to inspire people like you to take a stand at any level that you might be able to equip you, to inspire you, to challenge you, to give you the rhetorical ammunition that you need. But we still have to pay bills. This program, as you know, if you're a regular viewer, we don't spend a lot of time raising money. We don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, you need to buy this and we're gonna, no. We're bringing you a message, but we still have bills that we need to pay. I'm asking you, if you have been blessed by this show, to please go to our website or send a check to the address you see on the screen or call the phone number that you see on the screen and use your credit card and to give $50 or $100 or $500 just to help us meet our normal expenses. And we'll keep bringing you this hard-hitting show. The ongoing fight that every human being has is the fight within their soul against self-love. There are people who look at Donald Trump and others and say he's so narcissistic. And I think that people who might be the most agitated with this are the ones who are struggling the most with their own narcissism. And I'm not saying it's across the board, but there is an adage that's true. We generally hate in other people the things that we most dislike about ourselves or that we are struggling with. Every human being struggles with self-love, self-will. I am my own God. Christ said, take up your cross and what? Die to yourself. That's the challenge for us as Christians, is to die to ourselves. And it's the most difficult part of the Christian life for many of us, because I want to do what I want to do. I want myself to be gratified. I don't want myself to be dead. So there you have it. Let's, by the way, I solicit your prayers for those of you who are praying people. We are going into studio now to work on the voice actors for our upcoming television series, What Would Muhammad Do? The Shadow of the Sword. Nothing in the English language has ever been done like this. I encourage you to go to our website, and if you want to pre-order, it's 9 episodes as well as an extras reel, a DVD extras reel with a bunch of stuff that we just couldn't fit in the 9 episodes. You can pre-order your copy, and that will help us with production costs. I've got 1 minute left. I want to read this. This was from InfoWars. A lot of times you look at a story and there might be something interesting, but the comments can even be better than the story. Ready? Obama is against Trump. The media is against Trump. The Democrats are against Trump. The Republicans are against Trump. The Pope is against Trump. China is against Trump. And I'm sure I have missed a few. And the Trumpster is still standing. To have those odds against him, and he is still not only standing, but drawing a following. That's presidential material right there. Tonight, when I'm done, you might want to look for the debate, because the Republican candidates are about to have a debate in Texas. And let's see what happens I'll be with you tomorrow to talk about this debate that's about to happen. God bless you.
Mm-hmm.